The arrow whistles past your ears so close you can feel the fletching brush your skin. Around you, men are screaming. Not war cries, but pure terror. Because this isn't like the movies. This is medieval warfare, and you're about to find out why most battles lasted minutes, not hours. And why the survivors never talked about what they saw. You're standing in a muddy field outside Agincourt, France. It's October 25th, 1415. The ground beneath your feet isn't just mud. It's mud mixed with blood, vomit, and worse. The stench hits you first: unwashed bodies, rotting teeth, and the metallic smell of fierce sweat. Your armor is maybe a leather jerkin if you're lucky, a rusty helmet your grandfather wore. The knight next to you? His plate armor cost more than your village makes in 10 years. You're holding a spear you've never used in real combat, and your hands won't stop shaking. Across the field, thousands of French knights sit on massive war horses. Their armor gleams even in the gray morning light. They look like metal gods. You look down at your own hands. They're the hands of a farmer, a baker, a blacksmith. But everything is about to change, because those war horns you hear? They're not calling you to glory. They're calling you to die. King Henry V of England stands behind you somewhere, but you can't see him through the mass of terrified faces. He's 28 years old, supposedly chosen by God, but right now he's outnumbered 5-1. The French think this will be a slaughter, and they're probably right. On the other side, Charles d'Albret leads the French nobility. These aren't just soldiers, they're the cream of French society. Dukes, counts, men who own castles and thousands of acres. To them, you're not even human. You're a peasant with a pointy stick, and they've been training to kill peasants with pointy sticks since they could walk. The Gesta Henrici Quinti, a contemporary chronicle, records that the French army contained over 1,500 men at arms in full plate armor, while most of the English foot soldiers carried weapons worth less than a single French knight's stirrups. Archaeological evidence from mass graves shows that 80% of medieval battle casualties died from head trauma, meaning most never even saw the blow that killed them. Here's what nobody tells you about medieval warfare: it's not about skill. It's about physics and panic. A mounted knight in full armor weighs about 400 pounds total. When that hits you at 25 miles per hour, it's like being struck by a small car. Your spear, if you're brave enough or stupid enough to hold it steady, might penetrate his horse. Might, but probably not his armor. The French knights are positioning now, and you can feel the ground starting to vibrate under their horses' hooves. Your bowels want to empty themselves. The man next to you is crying. Someone behind you is praying in Latin he doesn't understand. Medieval chronicler Froissart documented that at the Battle of Poitiers, French knights' destriers' war horses were specifically bred to weigh over 2,000 pounds. Modern biomechanical studies show that a medieval lance strike generated approximately 3,000 pounds of force per square inch, enough to punch through 3 inches of oak. This is the moment you realize the truth. You're not a warrior. You're not a hero. You're livestock being led to slaughter by men who will never know your name. But here's where it gets worse. The French knights aren't even your biggest problem. It's the mud. October in northern France means rain, and rain means the field is a swamp. Those beautiful war horses? They're sinking up to their bellies. The knights in their perfect armor? They can barely move. And that's when you hear it, the sound that will haunt survivors for the rest of their lives. The English longbows. Not 1 or 2 arrows. Thousands. The sky goes black. It sounds like a thunderstorm made of death. The English longbow corps at Agincourt consisted of approximately 5,000 archers, each capable of shooting 12 arrows per minute. That's 60,000 arrows in the air simultaneously. Contemporary accounts describe the arrow storm as like rain falling upward, then down again. Skeletal remains show that longbow arrows could penetrate mail at 200 yards and still have enough force to shatter bone. You watch knights, these metal gods you feared, suddenly become pincushions. Arrows find the gaps in their armor, under the arms, through the eye slits, between the plates at the joints. Horses scream and thrash, throwing their riders into the mud where they sink like stones. Now comes the part that will make you understand why medieval battlefields were called the Devil's Harvest. The French knights who survived the arrows are stuck in the mud, unable to get up in their heavy armor. And King Henry gives the order that will stain this victory forever. No prisoners. You and the other foot soldiers move forward with daggers, hammers, anything sharp. What happens next isn't combat. It's butchery. Knights who spent their entire lives training for honorable single combat are lying helpless in the mud like overturned turtles. They're begging for mercy in French, offering ransoms worth more than entire villages. But Henry's order is clear. You find yourself standing over a French duke. His helmet is cracked, and you can see his eyes through the gap. He's maybe 20 years old, younger than you. He's speaking softly, probably praying. Your hands are shaking as you raise your dagger. The Chronicle of St. Denis records that over 1,500 French nobles died at Agincourt, including 3 dukes, 5 counts, and 90 knights banneret. Modern analysis of mass graves from medieval battlefields shows that 60% of wounds were inflicted post-mortem, suggesting systematic killing of the wounded. Henry V's no quarter order violated the accepted laws of chivalric warfare, but saved his army from being overwhelmed by prisoners. This is the reality of medieval warfare, not heroic duels or noble sacrifice. Just mud, blood, and men dying while begging for their mothers. Aftermath and human cost 8:30, 10 o'clock. 6 hours later, it's over. The French army is destroyed. English casualties? Maybe 200 dead. French? Over 6,000. But here's what the chronicles don't tell you about victory. You're sitting in that same muddy field, and you can't stop your hands from shaking. The French duke you killed keeps appearing every time you close your eyes. Around you, your fellow soldiers are stripping the dead, pulling rings off fingers, cutting purses from belts. Some are vomiting. Others are laughing too loud and too long. The smell is getting worse. Blood draws flies, and there are thousands of bodies. By tomorrow, the field will be a feast for crows and wolves. The local peasants will spend weeks burying the dead in mass graves, and they'll find bones in these fields for the next century. Archaeological excavations at Towton Battlefield in Yorkshire revealed that 28% of skeletons showed evidence of extreme trauma, skulls split in half, facial bones completely shattered. Medieval accounts describe battlefield cleanup taking up to 6 months, with local clergy performing mass burials for souls too numerous to count individually. You survived. But the person you were when you woke up this morning? That person died in the mud along with everyone else. This is what medieval warfare really was. Not the shining knights and noble quests of legend. It was terrified farmers with rusty weapons, dying in the mud for kings they'd never meet, in wars they didn't understand. The survivors of Agincourt went home to villages that would celebrate them as heroes. But late at night, when the ale wore off and the songs ended, they'd stare into the fire and see French eyes looking back at them. Because that's the real cost of medieval warfare, not just the dead, but the living who carried those fields inside them forever. Every medieval battle was like this. Crécy, Poitiers, Hastings. Thousands of stories just like yours, of ordinary people caught in the gears of medieval politics and ground to nothing. History is full of stories just like this. The real stories they don't teach you in school. Stories of what it actually felt like to live through the moments that changed the world. If you want to hear more of the truth behind the legends, make sure to subscribe, because next week we're going inside a medieval siege. And trust me, you thought the battlefield was bad.